What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. My name is Zach Hernandez. I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Llewellyn. Matt, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Zach. How are you?
Doing good. Today, guys, we're going to be talking about the 49ers, unfortunately, being bitten by the injury bug again. Matt, recently the 49ers had a group of players together, and two 49ers receivers specifically got injured. Deebo Samuel broke a bone in his foot, and Richie James broke his wrist, and they're both going to be out a couple of months. What do you make of this, and how serious are these injuries? You are our medical expert after all.
Yeah, the Deebo one hurts. It's a Jones fracture, so that's to the fifth metatarsal, the long bone on the outside of the foot. It's a 6 to 8 week recovery. The thing that makes it hurt is that we're still seeing Trent Taylor unable to run routes, and he had the same injury. Granted, he had infection, but in general, feet are very poorly circulated too. So injuries there can be kind of, hit or miss as far as healing time. If he's got good circulation, then, he could heal really well. But at a position where cutting and speed is such a premium, you always hate to see injuries to the feet. So the Deebo one hurts. I had heard somewhere that, that the surgery, well, I heard from him that the surgery went well, that, 6 to 8 weeks, but I heard from, I think Matt Mayoko was talking about that he was reading some studies where only about 50% of Jones fractures heal within the original estimated timeline. So if it goes longer than that, that's a bad thing. Again, healing is going to be the most important part. And Deebo, as a young guy, you kind of got to protect him from himself, because there's going to come a point where that walking boot comes off and they're like, okay, you can walk, but you can't do any cutting. And of course, all athletes are competitors and they're going to want to push it. The Richie James injury sucks too. But that one hurts a little bit less because, let's be honest, he's kind of a bubble guy. His chances of making the roster for the 2020-2021 season were kind of slim to begin with. I've never been impressed with him as a returner. I do like him as a receiver. I think he brings a little bit of a juice to the receiving core, a little bit of speed that we don't necessarily have. As a returner, I don't think he's good. He tends to run into coverage instead of, running away from it. I just wasn't that impressed. So that was his claim to a roster spot, really, was his, work on special teams. You got Jalen Hurd coming back. Hopefully he's healthy. But you got, obviously, Brandon Aiyuk, who they just drafted, so it's a crowded wide receiver room with not a lot of spots. We're going to see real quick from Aiyuk and Hurd what they're going to offer in training camp as Deebo sits out. Maybe this will be a renaissance for Dante Pettis. That would be nice, considering they spent a second-round pick on him. You never know. But Richie James, to me, that this just cements that he probably won't make it.
Hearing you talk about Deebo Samuel's foot injury, that's it's concerning, because when the news first broke in our group chat, you were talking about it, and it sounded like it's something that's definitely manageable and that won't affect him long term. Mm-hmm. But if that is the case, we're only 40-50% recover in the originally.
Well, and I do want to point out, I didn't check Mayoko's numbers on that. That's just what I heard him say, and I know that a lot of people respect him, and I'm sure he did his due diligence. That's not to say that he didn't. My thing is that you would hope that with the amount of difficulty that Trent Taylor had, that Deebo Samuel would go smooth, but there's always that possibility that it doesn't, and I know that if it doesn't, that'll hurt. And like I said, feet are especially tricky. If you have injuries to the feet, they can linger. We've seen that, especially more so in basketball than in football. But feet injuries can be the death knell to a career. And I'm not saying that that's the case with Deebo. I think I'm hopeful that he's going to recover nicely. But, you do have that in the back of your mind, that you worry about that, and it's a tough one because we all know how dynamic he can be. And we don't want him to lose any of that. So hopefully it's a smooth recovery. On the other hand, I've heard that some athletes recover as quickly as 3 to 4 weeks. So, let's hope he's a quicker healer than most others.
You brought up Trent Taylor. Would you say that's more on the spectrum of ridiculously worst case scenario?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And I wouldn't be surprised if his career's over. We're talking almost 2 full years later, and he's still not able to run routes with everybody. I know that he just got out of the walking boot not too long ago. I mean, that's a lot of work to be done on a foot. And, you're worried about, there's soft tissue in there. There's going to be scar tissue buildup that can cause pain. You're talking about, perhaps some osteoarthritis with the bone. You never know. I mean, the foot could be brittle after that. You hope not, but man, it's been it's the same thing that we talk about with Jet McKinnon. How effective can he be coming off of 2 straight years of injuries? And the same is true of Trent. Essentially, coming off the back injury, had a foot, and then just this entire year has just been nothing but foot the whole time. And, again, it's one of those areas that's really tricky. So, you want to be hopeful, but you also have to be realistic. And again, Taylor's starting to drift towards the bottom of that depth chart too, so he could be on thin ice. So let's hope that that Deebo's foot injury isn't that bad, and he recovers nicely. And I mean, let's hope that we can get something out of Trent Taylor, because he was exciting as a rookie, and we'd like to see him get back to that point.
Definitely. Now you touched on Richie James, and I totally agree with you that he is a bubble guy, and to be honest with you, I would have rather have seen Dante Pettis out there returning punts at that point. He wasn't providing that much of a spark. He wasn't taking anything back to the house, and his capital the capital they spent on him is much lower than they spent on Dante Pettis. I would have much rather have seen them throw Dante out there and say, okay, you led all college in punt return yards or whatever. Show me what you got. And for some reason they didn't do that. I think this likely is the writing on the wall for Richie James, his time with the 49ers at least. Obviously, wish him the best of luck. He's a great dude. I spoke to him back when I was with Nothing But Niners in the beginning of his career. Super nice guy. But I just hope that he's able to get things back on track, because he does have some talent and some skills there. I just think the 49ers constantly adding to their wide receiver group year after year, he just got buried down on that depth chart.
Yeah.
Now, Matt, Trent Taylor, obviously you said that's really bad. Give me best case scenario for Deebo. And I know you said 4 to 6 weeks, but realistically, best case scenario, is he going to be ready by training camp, whatever sort of training camp the NFL has, and also for preseason?
Best case scenario, they bring him along slowly. He gets his work cutting. He gets maybe some 7-on-7 work, and you debut him week 1 for the regular season. That's the best case scenario that I can see, and it's probably the safest. You don't want to rush him back if you can help it. Take a look at the early schedule, see if you got some winnable games. You might even sit him out the first 2 weeks just to make sure. You want to make sure that foot has as much healing time as possible. You want to make sure that it heals cleanly and that the bone is strong. You don't want a recurrence of the injury, because when you have the recurrence, that second injury is always worse than the first. So if you can just make sure that he's not having pain in the foot, really the team should get with, a podiatrist. I'm sure they have somebody that can maybe, customize some cleats for him to make them as supportive and as comfortable as possible, while still allowing him to do the things that he needs to do on the football field. But yeah, best absolute, everything goes smoothly, I would keep him out until week 1 of the regular season.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. That's longer than I expected for best case scenario. You touched on his cleats there, and I'll keep this as an anonymous source. I don't know if they want to be named, but they kind of shared with us that they had some inside information that this injury was mainly due to him having custom Gucci cleats, I believe was the case, and that Deebo was informed to get, real football cleats and not cleats that are for show. He didn't, listen, and he went ahead and went with the still cutting in the Gucci cleats, and sure enough, that's what happened. So hopefully he learned his lesson. Unfortunately, it had to happen the hard way, but hopefully he does get some real NFL cleats. Not to say that these ones aren't, obviously, but they're more likely for show. I mean, they're not meant to go out and play in. So hopefully that's the case. It's a shame this had to happen in order for him to learn his lesson, but.
Right. And, and I don't know about designer cleats or whatever the situation was. That very well could be the case. But if you have cleats that don't fit right, or, same thing with shoes, or, maybe you didn't tighten the laces enough, maybe they were untied or something like that. I mean, again, feet are very complicated. They're very sensitive, and you need to protect them as much as possible. Again, they're out there doing their own thing, maybe in a football setting. Instead of having just the cleats the way that they are, he has the training staff completely tape them up, professionals out there. Who knows what they were doing? Everybody looked like they were pretty much in street clothes, just kind of, going through the motions, like really doing work, but not doing it in the way that you would expect on a football field. And it's that kind of like half speed going through the motions kind of thing when you're not dialed in, that really those things happen. So if it was bad cleats, he probably won't ever wear them again. But again, feet are sensitive, and that's not to, we don't want to put blame on anybody, even if he was wearing like goofy cleats or whatever. Injuries could have happened anyway. So, again, you have to protect your feet. And that's not just for athletes, that's for everybody. Feet are, from bottom up. I mean, they're one of the most important body parts that you need to take care of. So
for sure, definitely. Last question for you here, Matt. Mm-hmm. The 49ers cannot escape the injury bug. It seems like no matter what injury bug repellent they spray on themselves, they just get swarmed by hives of injury bugs year after year after year. Mm-hmm. It seemed like last year they kind of got away from it slightly, and then mid to end of the year they got hit hard. Is there something in the water at Levi's in Santa Clara? What is going on? Are these normal injuries that any NFL team deals with, and we're just kind of more prone to recognize them because it's our team that we're covering here?
You just hit the nail on the head. We care more about the 49ers. Because if you're looking at Philadelphia lost their best offensive lineman to a ruptured Achilles just this week. Mm-hmm. There's been other injuries. Other teams deal with injuries all the time. It's just that we care more about the 49ers. We follow the 49ers, so that's always just boom right in our face. Because the first thing we do when we go on Twitter or go online or whatever is we go, okay, what's going on with the 49ers? And then we just see injury. And there could be 20 other injuries that day, but we only really pay attention to the 49ers and then other team superstars. And we don't look about, that 26th guy on the roster, that vital role player that's in there, again, I'm having a hard time naming anybody just because, we don't pay attention that much. But I don't think there's anything outside of the realm. And with these injuries in particular to Debo and James, these are broken bones. I mean, they're kind of freak injuries. It's not like the typical, he was cutting on air and tore an ACL thing. The bone breaks are really freaky because bones, tensile strength speaking, are really strong, at least to maintaining load, not so much on twisting motions, but anything can happen. So I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong or anything in the water. I think we just pay a more critical eye to the 49ers and we have more invested into the team. So that's why we think that we have substantially more injuries. Now, games lost we could very well be on the high side, and that's just bad luck. And over the course of time, that's going to normalize itself out. It's just unfortunate now because there's heightened expectations for the teams now. And we saw what happened last year, and we're so excited to, go into this year. And with everything happening in the world, to pile injuries on top of that, it's a bitter pill to swallow. So we just got to, keep calm. Everything will be fine eventually. So for now, it's just a wait and see sort of thing.
All right, guys, on that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Keep calm, like Matt said, and hope these injuries stop happening. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, guys. Our handles are below on the screen. We tweet a lot about the 49ers. When you get up in the morning and check Twitter, check our feeds as well because we post a lot. And make sure you subscribe to this channel, and leave a comment below.
Yep, and go ahead and hit the bell for the notifications. We are bringing you 49ers content all the time. And remember, think 10 seconds before you hit send on that tweet, all right?
Thanks, guys.